What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crazy Crab Chess channel, and today it's time for part 2 of the ALBIN-COUNTER GAMBIT COMPLETE course, video number 2. And in part 1, we discussed the opening moves, which are the same every time. White wants to play the Queen's Gambit. Black replies with e5. We want to play the ALBIN-COUNTER GAMBIT. Now, from this position, we'll be talking about a lot of moves in this series, but for the first few videos, we're focused on the main move, d takes e5, and then black will push. We're going to go d4, hoping for maybe e3 right away, but most of the time, it'll be knight f3, and then we'll go knight c6. And now, in the first video, we talked from this position about e3. Today's video, we're going to talk about another move. It's kind of annoying, and that's a3, because with this move, it pretty much eliminates any chance of the bishop b4 check and some really cool attacking lines that we talked about in the first video, but we have to be prepared for it. And the automatic response to this move should be knight e7. So we're going to go knight g e7, usually with preparations to jump over to g6. And when in doubt, the next move that we're going to play is probably going to be knight g6. When in doubt, if you don't know what else to do, or if I haven't explained it in this video, this is going to be the common move. We're going to look at a lot of possibilities from this position. After a3 and knight g to e7, there's so many moves. e3 now could happen, which leads to some boring drawish positions, but we have to look at it. Then there's b4, which can lead to some really nice positions, but also some more advanced positions. And we'll look at a game between two grandmasters in which b4 was played in this position. Knight bd2 is very common here. And occasionally you'll see bishop f4 and occasionally bishop g5. And that's really the only 5 moves that you'll see. Those 5 moves comprise about 90% of the next move from white. But like I said, if in doubt, if g3, for instance, and here, very rare in this position, you'll see g3. Usually they'll just play g3 instead of a3. But you can always play knight g6, trying to gang up on this pawn right here. But let's look at the 5 most common moves, starting with the least common, which is bishop g5. And I would not suggest knight g6 in this position. You should be in doubt in this position, because clearly that's a slight mistake right here. Your queen may not survive that, so you don't want to do that. But what's the most common move that you think about when a piece jumps into your territory, or when one of your pieces jumps into the opposing side's territory? For example, if this pawn wasn't here and I jumped up here, what could I expect the next move to very likely be? Yeah, of course. It's just, if you play chess long enough, you've seen it. And in this particular case, it's called for. Like, what are you even doing? Why are you jumping into my territory so early? We're trying to develop here. Get out of my way. And already, black is close to equalizing. If bishop takes, we're going to take back with the bishop. And already pretty much equalized here, because we've recaptured this where we want to go bishop e7 anyway. Now we've done it with tempo, getting ready maybe to castle, but maybe not. Maybe we'll have an attack here. The most common move right here is actually just a simple knight bd2. And from here, a little special move, f6. We're trying just to, because white's playing some overly aggressive early moves, and it gives us a chance. And look at that, his king looks a little bit, his king is quite cramped in there. It's going to be a while before he can castle. And we can castle in one move if we want to. So let's just go ahead and play f6. And if black takes, if white takes, which most likely will, we take back with the bishop. And from here, the most common move is knight e4, trying to attack. But here we can just castle. And if he takes, hey, that's fine. Queen takes, and already you can see black's just a pretty strong advantage early on. We've castled. The rook and the queen are lined up. This knight is developed. Bishop has some good scope. And white still has a few moves just to get developed. And this pawn is nice right here on d4. Everything's better for black already. Alternatively, if we go back, and let's say after this move, white does a very common procedure when you try to attack a piece. They want to keep the pin. So backs up to h4. In fact, I'd say that's more likely. And you see black, it's even better for black. And we're going to keep on this. Like, what are you even doing? g5. Keep on him. And after white goes to g3, we're going to jump right in and just keep on that bishop with knight f5. And white with a few options right here, but the most common move more than 50% of the time, a simple knight bd2. And black has a few options right here after this move. Could go ahead and you could just play g4 and just get after that knight. In this position, I typically, you can play this. You can see black holds the strong advantage. You could also, what I do is just simply bishop g7. Just fianchetto the bishop. I'll get to this at some point probably. But I want to just fianchetto the bishop right here. We're putting extra pressure right here on this pawn. Yes, for now, he's defending it. But we have lots of moves coming up here. Bishop's coming out to e6. Could castle pretty soon here. We're going to push here, g4. Common move right here, simply, maybe knight will go over here. We can attack this knight. Just stick on this knight right here. Almost has to go back. I mean, there's not a lot of great squares for the knight. And you can see this it's just good all the way around for black. So that early move of bishop coming out to g5, not a good idea for white. I mean, white, with perfect play, can keep it even. But already, just after this move, black has equalized. And after this move, if he backs up, which is very common, look at that bar, just jump up for black. We're coming after him hard. After this variation right here, things are looking really good for black. Another move that occasionally you'll see instead of this is this move. Already trying to defend this pawn, maybe seeing your future plans here. And we're going to stick to our future plans because we're actually attacking the bishop with this move. Yeah, he better be careful. So 9 times out of 10, bishop backs up to g3. And, well, let's go right after him. h5, we're going to go right after him. And obviously, one move, or actually there's two moves. He could try either one of these. If he tries this, like h4, just opens up another square for us. So just take advantage and jump up there. And black now has a slight edge. More likely, I think, it'd probably be h3. So eliminates this, but we'll just develop the knight here instead. Bishop to e6. Maybe knight bd2. Let's go queen d7 here. Just getting ready to castle queen side, perhaps. If white's getting overly aggressive, like b4, maybe we won't even castle because there is some pressure coming in here with these pawns. Maybe we'll castle king side instead and just play rook d8 right here. And this is a nice battery right here lined up, ready to go. And they may push, but okay, simply knight c to e7. And both sides look a little cramped here, but I think black is a little bit better. In fact, the bar shows that black has a clear edge right here. And white's getting a little overly ambitious with these pawns. He's going to, want to move some of his pieces soon, and these pawns can become a liability. So I think this is pretty good. Not sure what white would play here. Maybe he'll bring his rook over, and we can just jump right into the game with our knight that moved here. Just got kicked to e7. That's going to propel this knight into the game. Jumping into f5. We're also defending the pawn here. We got lots of support here for this pawn. Also attacking this bishop. Could ruin his pawn structure. Over here's a terrible place obviously white can't even castle over on the queen side. So white's wanting to castle here. So definitely doesn't want to give this bishop up. But if he backs up, he's completely neglected his pawn over here. Like I just said earlier, pawns are having a problem. Rook comes over here thinking, oh, I'll attack the bishop and then go ahead and grab that pawn. But white has just too many pieces, too many possibilities. After this move, we've now pinned this knight. We have a chance to, after it takes here, you can see the black's advantage is jumping up right here. If we could jump up here and attack this queen, he can take, we take back, and we have a pin right here. And look at this insane power coming up to our, this is big problems right here. This knight actually can't even move. And white's position just crumbling right here. So we've seen. Okay, so back to the opening moves here. And we saw what happens after the bishop comes out to these two places. And it's not so great. I do want to show you some lines if now we see e3. And this is, even though the bar shows black gains a little edge here, it's not one of my favorite moves to see. I've already seen a3. Normally when I see e3, I hope to see that earlier so I can throw this check in. But obviously now they've already played a3. So we've committed to knight to e7. If you see this move, this is no longer a good move. You're allowing white to just take absolute control of the center, and you're going to get absolutely destroyed. So if this move is played after a3 and you've moved your knight here, you have to go bishop g4 right away. Now, 9 times out of 10, well, maybe not. That's actually 62% of the time, bishop e2 comes in right here. And it leads to a very drawish game because if you play all the right moves, white responds pretty naturally. I'll show you how you can get a draw in this position, but then I'll go back and show you how to take advantage of white when they don't play all the right moves. So normally right here, we're going to capture the knight, and white doesn't want to mess up the pawn structure, so they'll probably take back with the bishop. And at this point, we go ahead and capture the pawn. And most of the time, 80% of the time, white is going to go ahead and make this trade right here. So queen takes, rook takes, and from here, bishop's going to take here because we want to develop the bishop, and there's a pawn there. So it's such a natural move. And this position has been reached thousands of times. Now, we're going to start capturing pawns. And they're probably going to start capturing pawns. They see you taking pawns, like, oh, we got to take pawns too. Now, there's two possibilities. Pretty much this is not going to be, white's not going to try this because they see, you know, b6 pretty much traps this bishop, and it's not ideal. So they're probably going to go for this move. Bishop takes on b7. Now, well, knight takes on c4. And now that the bishop has taken here, there's no worries that this pawn, well, bishop's just going to keep on being greedy. Bishop takes on a7. And now the next move is not to take here, as you can see, but actually it's to go bishop a5, attacking this bishop on b7, and it'll probably retreat all the way back to a protected square of f3. And now we're going to play knight b3, attacking the rook. And as you can see, we have a perpetual. And really, there's nothing that can be done, because if white allows you to take the rook, you're going to take the rook. And if you play some other move, it's actually really bad for you. So you just have to take the draw in that case. But if we go back, there's going to be some other opportunities for black to go wrong. I mean, for white to go wrong here. So we're looking at this move and the immediate pin, bishop out to g4. Now, first of all, they may not play bishop to e2 right away here on the 7th move. They may actually try to make this capture first, getting this nice strong pawn center. But it doesn't work as well because of this pin right here. So it's not as bad as before when we went over here and allowing white to get this strong pawn center. Yeah, it looks a little intimidating. But first we're going to grab this knight. Going to draw out the queen here. Well, this main pawn right here in the center hangs. Queen takes d4. And it's really difficult to defend this pawn, if not impossible. So more than likely, simply like a knight c3 will be played, and we can grab it. And that pawn center is not so scary anymore. And in fact, right here, black with the slight edge after this check. So let's say bishop blocks here. We have knight d4. It's just forking the queen and the bishop. And if the queen decides to get greedy, which she probably will, bam, taking on b7. Love to see this whenever I'm ready for it. Because right here, rook slides over to d8. And we're just creating more powerful opportunities here. The rook here, queen here, knight in white's position. And if white keeps being greedy, could run into some problems. Let's see if you can find the mate in 3 moves. Mate in 3 moves. Well, we do have a possible checkmate right here if this knight wasn't here, but it is forceful. The knight has to take. So we have to think about it. Queen takes, knight has to take, right? And then we have this rook check. King can't come forward because the knight will be there. King can't come over here because the rook. King has to go there. The knight will still be on this square, meaning the king has no escape after this. Bam, 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 bam. So that would be really awesome, but that's only if the queen is super greedy. If we back up a little bit, just to recap that entire line, because it is a little bit involved, but after a3, we go here. And this is talking about the immediate e3. We're going bishop out here. And we're talking about he captures here. Before playing this move, which we like to see, we're going to take, queen takes, queen takes. We said knight coming out here, queen takes with check, and then bishop here. Knight comes up here, queen gets greedy, takes here, rook over here, and if queen takes again, we execute the checkmate. If, on the other hand, white is smart and just says, well, let's not be a little greedy, this is too much, this is way too much. Queen is here, knight is here, rook, this is way too much. Most people will not take this pawn, they'll just castle. But wait a minute, knight takes e2. Knight takes, queen takes, and black is doing great. So, okay, maybe castling is not the best thing here, even though it is the most common move in this position, believe it or not. Queen takes leads to mate. Castling, you just hang the piece here. So maybe bishop e3. Uh-oh. What happened here? Got a little fork on our hands. Knight c2 check picks up the rook at a minimum. And black is winning. So, what's white to do here? After taking this queen, the rook comes over to d8. This is a really intimidating position. White doesn't have a lot of options. In fact, might have to play f4. That's the only move I see that doesn't completely lose on the spot, pretty much. Still super scary. All you have to do, though, you want to keep this pin going. So just queen e6. And right here, there's hardly any good moves. The fork is still here. All kind of threats right here. This knight moves, it's checkmate immediately. Maybe the king will try like just king f2, just trying to get out of this pin, maybe trying to get safe, get to safety somewhere. But right here, we want to play this knight to c6. So knight e c6 blocks off the queen from can't take here, can't take here, can't even take here. It's just too much pressure. You take here, this bishop is coming out here, and you have a discovered attack on it. And this is way too much pressure for white right here. So queen doesn't want to get greedy here. You know, maybe white tries to be aggressive here and attack with b4. But, you know, that does stop bishop c5. But simply bishop b7. We're going to castle. We're going to keep this attack going right here. Queen is almost practically out of the game. Can't go here. Can't go here. Could go here. And again, taking is just too risky right here. There's no time to just grab pawns right here for white. There is the possibility of this check. So maybe g3, just as an example. I mean, there's so many possibilities, but g3 to stop h4 check. This is just the kind of thing we're thinking of when we done Albin counter gambit. We're thinking of ways to attack. And after this move, there's really nothing big. We could just castle, bring in maybe the other rook into the game, looking for possible sacrifices. I mean, all kinds of things. Sometimes this queen get on a diagonal or the bishop point towards the rook. All kind of possibilities, but everything is out of place here for white. And make it desperate right now and finally say, screw it, I'll just take the pawn. But now at this point in time, we can start grabbing stuff, bring our other rook into the game, and very shortly, white's just getting crushed right here. The king out in the open, our king is nice and safely castled. So all bad there. We can back up a little bit. This is King's getting scared, went to F2 right here. This is when the knight jumped over here. Make sure this knight comes over here from E7 to C6, blocking everything out. Queen can't take, way too risky. Maybe rook E1 right here. You know, trying to protect here on E2, because that's where all this pressure's piling up. And after we castle, get another rook here, it is just too much pressure. So rook E1 looks like a nice move. Except now, knight C2. And we got a little fork. And if they try, you know, to be fancy with a discovered attack, oh, the discovered attack, I got your ass. You got nothing but a freaking checkmate. Or is this a checkmate? Not quite, but it's about to be. I mean, just pieces are just falling here. I mean, let's be honest. Checkmate in 4 moves right there. So just some lines right there to show what happens after E3. A3's been played. We brought our knight over, E3, and then this pin. And if they take her right away, it's very good news, because some good things can happen. But if they just play the boring bishop E2, not as good. We take, bishop takes. We're back on this again. Remember, D takes E3. We're talking about queen taking first. Rook takes. What if bishop takes in the 9th move? Seems pretty logical. Like, you may not always just trade right away. May take with the bishop first. I think most of the time they will trade when they see that. It tends to be the, oops, that is the next move. If the bishop takes, we're gonna be the ones who trade. We'll initiate the trade. And right here, normally, not wanting to bring the king into harm's way, they'll just move the bishop backwards. And this can't be good. You can see white moving backwards. We're the ones trading queens out, getting ready to castle queenside maybe, and looking pretty good. But before we castle queenside, let's grab that pawn in the middle of the board. Now maybe bishop E2. And like I said earlier, castle queenside. King will probably castle. And you can see already black gaining a little edge right here. A good move right here, knight F5. Bringing our knight into the game. Opening up the bishop to get out. And after something, maybe bishop F4, which is 72% of the time the most common move. We actually have a move right here. We always think, do I absolutely have to move this knight? Seems like I do. Oh, I could defend it. F6. Let's defend it. Oh, not good. It's not a good move. Why? Back up here? It doesn't like that either. Oh, I gotta do something here. What's going on? Oh, this move, right? Not really. Let's counterattack. Knight D4. And we're attacking the bishop with a possible check. And obviously if he takes, it's pretty obvious what to do. And actually black is significantly better here. So black with a clear edge right here. If they try to just bring this rook over here, this is trying to defend this bishop. There's a little bit of a problem. I hope you see it. Where's the major advantage here? We just take anyway. Yeah, I think that's going to be the ball game. These are the kind of lines we're looking for. We're prepared for this. I'm not saying white will necessarily fall for these moves, but it's very possible. We're prepared. We're making the moves quick. If it's over the board with long time controls, they're taking time to find these moves. They're taking time to find this move, and this is going to surprise them. Like, whoa. And very well might play something like this. And as you can see, game is going to be over. So back again. We're just going to run through this. Queens. Queen's Gambit, no. Albin, push. Knight, knight, A3, bishop here. And we're looking at the immediate E3. We go for the pin. Bishop comes out. We saw what to do if they take right away. Probably won't play this little sissy move here, but if they do, we can just take, and doing pretty well attacking the queen right there. I showed this move, but that's a little, again, super greedy right here. Anytime we can try to lock that queen in a little bit, like a move like this, the queen gets a little locked in here and can't even take here, can't go here. Not a whole lot of moves. Queen, I mean, tries to back up here, but black doing pretty well in this case. That's going to be a pretty rare scenario. Maybe this, and you can see black got the clear edge here. Pieces are coming in. The only piece developed is the queen. So that's going to be rare. Mostly it's going to be, honestly, bishop to E2 on the 7th move. So we looked at some lines in the opening that involve the knights coming out, and we've seen A3. We go here. We've looked at the bishop coming out to 2 different squares. We've looked at E3. What we have not looked at is knight BD2. Knight BD2, we respond. If in doubt, knight G6. And a common move here is knight B3. They're going to try to gang up on the pawn. We're trying to gang up on the pawn. But there's really no rush to grab it. Simply right here, bishop to E7. And if the knight here takes this pawn like this, we don't take here. Actually going to take here. Knight C takes E5. Usually knights will exchange. Something like E3. And then we have the special move C5, because there's really nowhere good for the knight to go. The only move to worry about is this, because it is threatening a future fork. You know, right now it can't, obviously, because the queen is there. The most common idea is to trade queens right away, but I actually prefer another move when the knight does find this good B5 move, knight to B5. Instead of trading queens, let's go bishop F5. And let white initiate this trade. And after rook takes, sure, there is this check and there is this pawn hanging. But after this check king F8, well, the computer still likes white with a slight edge, but lots of good possibilities if this knight doesn't try to get out immediately with like knight F5 or something. For instance, bishop here, you can see already the edge is changing because we're going to leap into the game like this. And if he takes, we can take. And now if he tries to start defending pawns like this, anytime it starts defending pawns like this, it starts getting bad right away. We're going to attack the rook. Rook doesn't have too many options. Rook has to go there. And we leap into the game, taking advantage of these pawns that moved a little too much and completely attacking. Actually, there's the only move he's got right here. And here there's one winning move. I think there's only one winning move. Taking equalizes. Actually gives white the edge. So we have to play this move to attack the rook. So if he takes, well, obviously we take. And there's really no way to save the rook. So that's probably what he's going to do. So obviously that move is bad. He has to bring the knight back into the game right here. And okay, white's doing okay. This move is still a possibility. Not as good as before. Still a possibility, but now the rook is a little bit out of the game. Can't quite get into the action as easily. But very close game. Play your game. You know, sometimes white's going to play very well, and you're not always going to have the huge advantage. But we have the advantage in understanding the opening and knowing lots of lines. And just to look at one more move in this variation. Okay, knight comes out. Knight comes out. A3. Knight here, knight here, knight here to G6. We looked at knight B3, bishop to E7. We're not going to rush to take this. Bishop E7. Knight B takes D4 was what we looked at. But what if knight F takes D4? Uh-oh. Not as good for white. What's going on? Well, first we're going to go ahead and grab with the C knight. We're going to grab the pawn on E5. And after E3, protecting the knight right here, few possibilities. I still like C5. But the key to remember after the A3 move, knight E7 and knight here, we are going to jump over here. More than likely, it's going to be this move. If he does something like this, by the way, always... But we'll see in a moment, but A5 is a solid move here in response to this B4 move. Oftentimes this will happen, but then we can grab this. Leads to some pretty cool positions. Just throw that out there for B4, which we're about to talk about. That can transpose easily. Could do B4 first. Then, you know, some kind of combination like this. Similar type of deal. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I was going to say that after this move and here, more than likely it's going to be knight B3. Again, just bishop E7. And Knight B will take D4, and we don't capture back. Just take the pawn right here. That's the key. And usually this trade just seems to happen. And E3, very common move right here. And then C5. And this is whenever, C5 comes in again, like you're getting ready to trade queens more than likely. Unless he comes here, and you can still trade queens, but bishop F5 can create some pretty cool possibilities. So like again, queens trade. And we looked at the check. Just one thing to note, if he does get greedy here on this 13th move and takes the pawn, same thing pretty much, throw in this check. More than likely, bishop will take. Either piece can take back, but I like the bishop better. Just trying to see if I can get white to see this and play this. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Because they'll see this hanging pawn, it's just instinctual, just B3. And I've got this whole line memorized and ready to go. Because white's playing natural moves, they see this and just they play with it. What's the harm? What's the harm? What do I got? I got nothing here, right? I can't take here. Backing up, what am I gonna do? Just castle? Actually, you got major problems with your rook, don't you? And a little move like this. Look at that king. The king's got problems. And keep in mind, after this, bam. That's the sequence to remember here. Believe it or not, you're playing your game. It may be a rare position, but you're playing your game. And when you play these moves and responding to natural moves, this can happen. This position can and will happen. So just be prepared for it right here. And black completely winning right here. You're even attacking this pawn. So black is just absolutely winning. By the way, just hung another pawn. So there you have it. One more move to look at in the I'm sorry, this is very deep. There's so many moves. We can't even cover them all, but we're going to cover as many as we can here. After A3 and knight here, there's one more move to look at, and that's the immediate B4. I don't actually hate to see this move. And the automatic response is going to be yes, knight G6. We don't care if they play B5. In fact, we welcome B5. Because if they have the guts to go B5, which happens all the time, look at the bar, we're going to take here on E5. And after this exchange of knights, black already has the clear edge. So commonly right here, bishop B2, trying to fianchetto the bishop, add some pressure on this pawn. We're going to defend it with bishop C5. This is perfectly okay right here. It looks a little funny, but it's perfectly fine. There's no pawns to bother this bishop anytime soon, or actually ever. E3 now, a little too late for that. We got to move. We got a surprising move right here. There's some other, there's several good moves, but I like queen H4 right here. We're completely winning, and we're going to take immediate advantage here. Black can castle in one move. We're trying to, white has already gone wrong, more likely to continue to go wrong. And we're inviting maybe even, because there's pressure here, even though right now it's not really the king is defending, but a lot of opponents will play G3 right here. And that's a problem. Remember this little strategy that we learned in the other variation where we come out here and then over here, from here to here? Well, worked again. We're attacking the rook. And we have pressure all over the place. Rook says, oh, actually, we see rook move here at times. We just crack everything open, and we're going to completely checkmate this guy. But also, even worse, F3. Like, yeah, you could take, but how about this? Just absolutely crushing. White can just go ahead and resign at that point. So after queen H4, sometimes white will just take right here. It looks like a strong center right here, attacking both these pieces. It doesn't matter. There's way too much pressure right here. And all we got to do is play bishop G4, attacking the queen. And a few responses. F3 looks like a common response, but it's impossible because of the pin. So it won't be F3. It'll be bishop E2. But we don't really care. we got a castle right here. This saves both of these pieces. Pawn can't take, or the queen will be taken. So very often right here, bishop will just take, knight takes back. And if g3 now, we have queen h3, just entering into the white position. And white is absolutely lost here. Still can't even take this bishop because of the queen there. So I think we could find a way to win from here. By the way, this rook's coming over soon, possibly. Just way too much right here, and white has lost. Checking out another line after this b5. Knight takes here. This is the 7th move, knight takes. So we looked at knight takes here. Knight takes on e5, knight takes back. What if knight takes on d4? Knight takes d4. Well, we're going to go bishop c5 right here, applying pressure to this knight. And the common and automatic response is e3. And now we have a move. And it is to attack the queen with bishop g4. Will they play f3 right here? It's more common than you would think. f3, you're like, oh crap, what do I do here? I definitely don't want to move this bishop if I don't have to. Good news is, you don't have to. Queen h4, we're coming in for the kill right here. And please don't even try g3 right here. But guess what? It's going to be g3, and we're breaking in here. And time to resign right here for white. But if he wants to continue, takes right here like this, we got a little special move right here. We got to save the queen. God save the queen. Yeah, you can take here and take, but then king will take your bishop. But I do know that a little move like queen f6, white probably won't even notice. His rook is being attacked. And you're attacking this knight twice. So yeah, no good for white. So make sure in this position, after you've taken here with check, takes back, you do need to retreat the queen to f6, attack the rook and the knight at the same time. Key move right there. By this time, white will be about ready to resign. So let's back up to when f3 was played, because you might be saying, nah, nobody will play f3 right here. Let's say bishop b2. Okay. Bishop e2, the knight took on d4 in this variation. We played bishop c5. E3 was played. We played bishop g4 attacking the queen, and now we have bishop e2. Well, we go ahead and grab the bishop. Bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes, e takes d4, queen takes d4. There's a little bit of a exchange here, and they may not notice it again. Oh, the rook hangs. But if they do, only one move. Rook a2, kind of ugly. Now we're going to castle, and black is looking pretty strong here. So if white decides to castle, we're going rook e8, and black's looking really strong right here. So in other words, we go all the way back. This is all these attacking lines are due to this early b5 move. It's not very good for white at all, as you can see. Most likely that's not going to be the move. More than likely, in this position, the correct move, or at least one of the correct move, and the move that you'll likely see is the fianchetto, bishop b2 on move number 7. And this happens in many Grandmaster games, including one played December 29th, 2016 between Radoslaw Wojtaszek and a player who loves playing the ALBIN-COUNTER GAMBIT with black. That's Alexander Morozevich, a Russian Grandmaster. He had the black pieces in this position and played pretty much perfectly. And right here, the move after the bishop fianchettos is a5. A move to remember. a5, because the response is automatic. It's going to be b5. I've never seen anything but b5. And from here, knight c takes e5, as we've been preparing to do. In the game, knight takes back here. That's the most common response. Occasionally, queen will actually take here. We don't mind really trading queens like this. This is fine. This pawn here hangs and attacking the bishop, but that's very rare. Most likely, it's going to be the knight taking, and then the knight takes back. So pawn pushed on b5. Just to recap, knight takes here, knight takes here, knight takes here. Then queen takes here, bishop takes here, and then knight takes c4. This position has been reached thousands of times, including many Grandmaster level games. So here on the 11th move, knight took on c4, and the next move is e3, discovered attack here on the knight. Pretty much the only move that grandmasters play in this position. There are some other moves that aren't so bad, but I just stick to bishop e6. This is what Morozevich played. This is what I'm playing. Bishop to e6, defending the knight right here on move 12. So now bishop e2, maybe getting ready to castle. We castle ourselves. White castled. And here, a special move here, simply sidestepping king b8. Next move for white was rook c1, bringing on the pressure. And black replied simply rook d6. Backing up, exposing this bishop. It's just more squares. Possibly getting ready to jump over to f5. And the next move, the very scary b6. And there's only one response. This is a blunder. You have to push c6 right here. Hold your position. Bishop e5 from white. And now Morozevich played f6. You can see the game stays very close. Black with the slightest of edges right here. He's playing all the right moves, all the right responses. Wojtaszek now played bishop back to g3. And it's time to jump forward with h5. Starting the attack. h3, automatic response, giving the bishop a square. But we want to get rid of this pin at this point. Didn't have to get rid of it right away because h5 was too much of a threat, so white had to do something about it. But now, if we don't move the king, white can take advantage of this pin. Rook's coming down maybe to c5, attacking. We're going to play this move. So king to c8. Now, it was knight c3, and now the knight can jump into the action with knight to c4. This trade is fine. White didn't go for it. He played knight to a4. Black jumping even closer up into white's territory. Knight d2. And now finally white goes wrong. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Should have played bishop here to c7. Which looks pretty freaking scary there for black. Nothing major, no major threats. And you could probably just move out of trouble. But instead, it was rook takes c6, thinking that after this move, that I guess he thought he had something after bishop a6. But it turned out king d7, just kind of running away here. Rook d1. So yeah, there's this pin. He calculated all of this. But after king e8, knight's defended. b7 trying to threaten some kind of promotion. Yes, the promotion square is covered. But what I think that white missed in all of this, thought that he was getting his promotion and maybe a trade of pieces here on b8. The problem simply is knight check and exposes an attack on the rook. Oh, but after the rook takes, just promote, right? With check. Except one problem. Rook takes is check. And white is completely lost. They played a few more moves, but basically at this point, the game is over and white resigned. And that was I just want to show you that game, a grandmaster level game in the ALBIN-COUNTER GAMBIT. That pretty much does it, everyone. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part 2 where we're talking about this a3 move. Keep it in mind. It really kind of plays itself. It's not that hard to memorize, but still, I took a look at these advanced grandmaster games. Memorize a lot of them. A lot of it is b4, knight here, and then the fiend shadow here on b2. That's the better move as opposed to b5. So when you see bishop b2, you might have your work cut out for you, but you might surprise them with a5. Oh no, you know what you're doing with a5. And after the b5 push, knight c takes on e5. The knights trade off, and everything's looking pretty good. So queen takes d4, queen takes d4, bishop takes, knight takes, e3, bishop out here. Try to memorize this line right here, because this is the main one here. Getting ready to castle. You castle here. He castles. He or she castles. King over to b8. Rook c1. This line has been played a couple times here, a few times by Alexander Morozevich, a really good ALBIN-COUNTER GAMBIT player. The king of the ALBIN-COUNTER GAMBIT. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Make sure to hit that thumbs up. I'll put a few links in the description to some of Alex Morozevich's games, so you can take a look at those and look at some other lines here that have been played But really fun Albin counter gambit. That's only if you're facing elite, level talent from white. More than likely, they're going to go wrong somewhere, and you're going to get a huge advantage. Guys, have a great day. We'll talk to you in the next one.